I'd like to talk about stronger than stigma and what I mean by that. But before we go into that, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, you're very, very welcome. So we are stronger than stigma. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of stigma. And when we talk about mental health and when we talk about grief, there's a lot of stigma around those topics. Now, mental health isn't to be sort of confused with, grief isn't a mental health condition, first of all. Mental health is, yes, it's a condition. There's lots of mental health conditions that we could talk about. Grief isn't one of them. Grief is a natural response to the loss or the end of something or someone. All right. But when we talk about stigma, we're talking about things that society has put into place and things that have evolved, language that's evolved over time, which means that you are then going to feel that I can't come forward because of certain thinking from, in certain groups in society, okay? Certain things that they believe in, which would mean that they wouldn't accommodate what I'm thinking and feeling, all right? And that's then going to stop you from sharing or opening up. But stronger than stigma is really me talking about how I feel and when I say we, I mean people who are grieving, people who are struggling with certain mental health conditions, for us to still come forward and talk and share. And, I get that as well, because when I talk about my loss, I can sometimes be around people where I feel I sort of hear a bit of that kind of thing, as I might hear it in the distance, slightly in the room, where I think the person is probably thinking, feeling, oh, here she goes again, talking about her loss, talking about grief. And I get it, because someone who isn't experiencing those things probably will feel, well, I don't really want to be talking about this every time I'm in the presence of. And then you might get things such as, well, you might get people thinking and saying, or maybe not even saying, but implying or alluding to, shouldn't you have got over it by now? It's been quite some time. Shouldn't you have moved on by now? And then again, stigma, and that adds to the stigmatization around mental health, around grief, around these topics which are difficult to talk about. And yes, they are difficult to talk about. But do we then let that get the better of us? And we sort of say, well, we're not going to talk about them because they're difficult to talk about. For example, suicide is a very difficult topic to talk about. But if we don't talk about it, then how are we going to raise awareness? How are we going to normalize these subjects so that people feel that they can open up and talk about them? So it's important for me, I talk about my loss, I talk about my mental health, I talk about everything. Why? Because I want to dismantle the stigma around these topics. And that's why I talk about them. That's why I often say I'm an open book, and I am. Because what I've experienced I'm not the first person who's experienced the things I've experienced, and I'm definitely not the last. So there's others. So there's more of us that have experienced similar things to what I've experienced. And if we talk about them, we are going to dismantle and reduce that stigma around these topics. But if we keep quiet, we let the stigma win. Okay? And that's really what I'm talking about here. We are stronger than stigma. I am, definitely. I won't allow people to say, okay, if you're in the company of some people that you don't understand what you're saying when you talk about, let's say, depression or anxiety, or talk about grief, these people don't actually understand because they haven't experienced those things, and their minds are they're not open enough to learn something new, to allow anything new or different to how they are in, okay, then you may think, okay, you know, I don't feel this audience maybe get me, but that doesn't mean to say I then stop sharing. I can still share, but because if I don't, then I'm basically allowing the stigma, the stigmatization, to win, and it's been winning, and that's why we're in the situation we're in. When it comes to mental health, when it comes to suicidality and suicide, it's an upward going graph. It's not something that's petered out or plateaued or it's going down. It's definitely still on the up, even though we're talking about things more. Even if we're talking about mental health struggles more, we're talking about how we are feeling and thinking more, because we're trying to get people to come forward and talk about how they're feeling and thinking. Okay? But is that actually reducing things down? No, because there's still so much stigma around it, even though we're talking about it more. So we've got a long way to go. So when I talk about stronger than stigma, this is really what I'm getting at. It's we need to take responsibility for ourselves when we talk about things. You know, and it's not that, you know, you have to completely lay down all your vulnerabilities to everyone, you know, 24 hours a day. That's not what I mean. You know, I don't do that. You know, it's not what I do. But to open up and say, look, you know, this is my struggle in life. This is what I'm carrying, you know, and it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't mean to say I'm imperfect. It means that I'm normal and I'm living a normal life, because things like this happen to people. Yeah, not the first, I'm not the last. It happens. These things happen to people. And when you share these things and you also show other people that you are living your life and you are working and you are socializing to a certain extent and you are, you know, you are living your life, it gives stigma. That definitely does reduce stigma, because it opens people's minds up to, wow, you know, if she can do that, if he can do that and he can do that, then maybe I can too. Maybe I could look at things slightly differently. You know, maybe I could look at the world a little bit differently, or see how I see the world, maybe from a different perspective. And that's a good thing. So what I say is, if we think about stigma as, you know, sparks or little bits here of little bits of fire, we don't want to fuel that for it to grow bigger. We don't want to do that. We want to dampen that down. And to dampen it down means that we need to be able to talk, we need to be able to open up, we need to be able to show up as our authentic self, or at least as close to our authentic self as possible. Yeah. And what's socially acceptable, I would say, as well. And that way, then we do reduce stigma around mental health, around grief, and make these topics and, you know, things that are inevitable in life and do happen in life to a lot of us, to make it more comfortable, have a larger platform where people can share and open up without feeling judged, without feeling, you know, that people are going to, you know, put a label over their forehead that this person is, you know, this, because we're not defined by what it is that we experience. We're not defined by our grief. We're not defined by our mental health condition. That's not what defines us. It's just a part of us. It's just a part of what makes the whole of you. So it's, I feel that it's quite important to talk about things that you're experiencing, in order to make sure that we allow other people to talk. As soon as one person stands up, you'll find that others will stand up as well and say, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. I've experienced something similar, then I've experienced something similar, then I've experienced something similar. And it's sometimes hard to be the first person to stand up. But if you just, make that effort, I think it pays off. So, yeah, be stronger than stigma, definitely. If you found the content of this video helpful, if you think that it might be helpful to somebody else, please do share it, please do like, please do comment, please do subscribe. And thank you to those who have already subscribed to this channel. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, look after your hearts and souls. Thank you.